In an Egyptian tomb of Amenhotep's time, there appears a poetic inscription that aptly characterizes both that pharaoh and his people. Spend the day merrily, put ointment and fine oil to your nostrils, and lotus flowers on the body of your beloved. From the outset of his reign, it was apparent that Amenhotep III was of softer fiber than his tough Theban forebears. For example, although Tutmosis III had been a mighty huntsman who had once come perilously close to being impaled on the tusks of an angry elephant, Amenhotep III, in attempting to establish his own image as a hero king, chose a safer route. He ordered that wild bulls be penned up within an enclosure. Then, says the chronicle, did his majesty proceed against all these wild bulls, tally thereof 170 wild bulls. Amenhotep apparently married for love, taking as his principal wife a commoner by the name of Tai, who was politically astute daughter of a lieutenant general. For her enjoyment, the king created a beautiful large lake, which measured some 6,400 feet long and 1,200 feet wide, on the grounds of his palace at Thebes. Despite the immensity of the project, it was completed in a mere 14 days. Many were the happy hours that Amenhotep and Tai thereafter idled away on the lake, drifting along on their royal boat. Yet Tai was far from being the only woman in the life of Amenhotep III. During his long regime, he married additional Egyptian women, as well as foreigners. 2 princesses from the kingdom of Mitanni, one of whom arrived in Egypt with 317 ladies-in-waiting. 2 from Syria, 2 from Babylon, 1 from the kingdom of Arzawa in Anatolia. The pharaoh also maintained an extensive harem and tirelessly nagged his principal governors about populating it. "Send beautiful women," he urged one such official, "but none with shrill voices. Then the king, your lord, will say to you, 'That is good.'" Given the example presented by the pharaoh, it was only natural that other Egyptians indulged in luxuries. For the highborn, home was likely to be a whitewashed villa of as many as 30 rooms, with a suite set aside for the master of the house, although others might have had to have been satisfied with cruder facilities. The nobleman's accommodations customarily included a toilet consisting of a portable pot underneath a seat that was supported by bricks. Bathed by shafts of sunlight that flooded the interior through clustery windows, the walls were decorated with paintings of birds and flowers in vivid hues of blue and green and orange, while columns gleamed with golden trim. In the cool of an Egyptian evening, the lord and his wife often lolled beside the pool in a walled garden fragrant with blooming flowers. There, surrounded by children playing with dolls or frolicking at a game of leapfrog, they could amuse themselves with a board game called Senet, or relax to the soft, sweet strains of a harp. Almost certainly, curled in the corner was a descendant of the African wildcat. First domesticated in Egypt, the cat was called by the phonetically fitting name of Mew. It was most pampered of pets, and even formidable Queen Tai, who was not accustomed to spreading her affections around, permitted her tabby cat to lie beneath her chair at the dinner table. Usually, the noble's villa was only part of a self-supporting complex that included a stable, a dairy, a bakery, a slaughterhouse, and perhaps a carpenter's workshop. On the outskirts stood vineyards, hives that provided honey, and ponds for geese that provided eggs. Beyond stretched pastures for grazing herds of cattle, and fields that yielded grain for bread and beer. Among Egyptians of this era, clothing was a sure sign of status. While peasants went naked or wore loincloths, and artisans, who comprised the Nation middle class, wore simple cloth wraps, more affluent men and women draped themselves in long, carefully pleated skirts, and fancied such heavy adornments as gold bracelets and broad gold necklaces festooned with beads of lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise. Both sexes favored wigs made of human hair, saturated with beeswax, and on festive occasions, topped with small cones of perfumed fat. Egyptian women used a wide range of cosmetics and beauty aids. There were green malachite and gray galena for shadowing the eyes and protecting the flesh from the glare of the sun, red ochre for rouge, and henna for dyeing the hair, the fingernails and toenails, palms of the hand and soles of the feet, ointments from the fat of hippopotamus, snakes, crocodiles, and lions to make the hair luxuriant, along with razors and tweezers to remove unsightly patches, scents for the breath, and myrrh or oil of lily to perfume the body. If you find this fascinating, please hit the like button. If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe. Click the bell so you'll be notified whenever we put out more great videos. Aphrodisiacs were available to arouse flagging passions, and magical formulas could presumably turn rivals into withered crones. Women occupied a respected place in Egyptian households. A sage urged fair treatment of wives with some advice for husbands. Do not supervise your wife in her house if you know she's doing a good job. Do not say to her, "Where is it? Get it for me," when she has put it in its proper place. Wives were even accorded certain legal rights. Not only could they own and dispose of property, but in the event of divorce they were entitled to 1/3 of the couple's possessions. In their outdoor pastimes, Egyptians took full advantage of their riverine habitat. Crocodiles that slithered from the banks of the Nile and hippopotamus that wallowed in the mud of its shallows were cudgeled to death with what amounted to combat to close quarters. The most popular sport was hunting waterfowl. In family outings in delta marshes, light skiffs were poled through the papyrus islands, and the women on board languidly plucked water lilies, while children gazed in awe at their skillful fathers, who used an ivory throwing stick that operated in the principle of a boomerang to bring down waterfowl. The family cat, especially trained for hunting, retrieved the fallen birds. With the fall of night, Egyptian society came to life in all its sybaritic excess, dedicating itself to Bes, a leonine deity who was the god of merriment, virility, and childbirth. Egyptians enjoyed parties. They adored the delights of alabaster tables groaning beneath the haunches of beef, legs of lamb, and tangy cuts of wild antelope and gazelle, sweet clusters of grapes, and sticky heaps of figs. They appreciated the wine that flooded from jars into goblets decorated with golden rims and the delicate form of lotus petals, always served by nearly naked maids who also stood by ready to wipe the lists of the guests with a napkin. They longed to hear the clash of the cymbals, the throb of the drums, the shrill of the pipes, and the strains of the stringed instruments. They loved the sight of the slender, supple dancing girls, slaves who had been imported from the conquered Asian or African lands, moving to the beat of the music. This Egypt, land of Amenhotep III, was destined to experience a radical upheaval. The old king, thoroughly debauched, sagging in his obesity, and tortured by the pain of an abscessed tooth, died around 1365 and passed the throne to his son Amenhotep IV. The young pharaoh would soon launch a religious revolution that would shake the very foundations of the land.